So today I'm going to be soldering the pins onto the tiny 2040, which is a small version of the Pico. Here we have a Raspberry Pi 0W, which is a full system on a chip, Raspberry Pi Pico, which is a microcontroller, the tiny 2040, which is the same chip but in a smaller footprint, and then an Arduino, which has been around for a long time. They say the Pico is about the size of a stick of gum, whereas the tiny 2040 is the size of a postage stamp. They both feature the Raspberry 2040 processing unit and a boot select button, but the 2040 gets rid of a few pins in favor of a reset button and a smaller footprint. And the connector on the Raspberry Pi Pico is a micro USB, whereas on the tiny 2040 it is a USB-C. You can use MicroPython with the Pico and CircuitPython with the tiny 2040. Now I've already soldered the pins onto this Pico, but I need to add the pins to the tiny 2040. And we're going to be soldering them in the down position so that it's easy to breadboard. And in fact, we're going to use the breadboard to help solder. Now I got this Arduino in the mail before. I ordered a bunch of transistors, but this one showed up. Now I'm not going to be using it, but it did come with a few pins that you can solder on, and they're breakaway pins. So you just give it a little snap, get it to the size you need because of the size difference in the boards. So I have these little pins left, and I'll use them for something later. Probably the debug ports that I have yet to add pins to. Alright, so now we'll take these little guys and we'll stick them to the breadboard. I have this soldering iron already buzzing in the background here. Let's see, I have it set to medium. Just needed to get it hot enough to heat up the pins. So we're going to hold the soldering iron to the pin, not while it's in my hand, but while it's on the board here, and heat it up. Then give it a little touch with some solder. And it's pretty simple. To keep the tip clean, we'll be using a damp sponge. And all we have to do is just wipe our sponge every so often when we start noticing some material collecting on the tip. And for the sand, it's just this little rinky-dink one I got from Radio Shack forever ago. Same with the solder. It's lasted me forever. First, a note on safety. I'll be using a mask because it has a carbon filter inside. And I'll also be using the fan here. Let me turn the light off for just a moment. This has a carbon filter here that's removable, and it'll exhaust here. But I don't want the exhaust going into my face as it goes out to the window over here, so I'll be using the mask. Alright, let's start the fan. Only one option on this fan, on or off. The Charlie Sheena fans. Alright, so to get started, just pick a pin and heat it up. Start to get a feel for about how long it takes. Now I've gone and started with the iron a little too cool, so then I ended up pulling more solder to get the job done and bled over to the sides, which in this case isn't the end of the world. It hasn't bled over between the two. So we do have a few Hershey-shaped kiss solders, which is what we're after. These sort of fat pyramid drops, that's again from it being too cool. And then at the end here, probably just me rushing a little bit. But this is my first one here that I did. So I got 40 pins of practice, and we just added a few more. So we're going to be turning the board over, doing the other side, and hopefully doing just as good, if not better, than we did before. I read on the Discord, some people were commenting that doing this reminded them they needed reading glasses. I don't know if I'm at that point yet, but these magnifying glasses certainly help. And a little bit much on that last one again. These have special solder points on them. If we go a little heavy, it's not the end of the world. They'll just run down these special channels. Okay. Like I said, I'm gonna wipe this clean before I cool it off. And turn it down. A Christmas gift from the in-laws a long time ago. It's plenty of use. I'm gonna turn the fan off so it's not blowing in my face. And the mask. Put that up there. Alright. We should be able to pop this little guy out now. There we are. And when we plug it in, we should see it still works.